Greetings, and welcome to the Modern Alchemist Channel. I'm Aubrey Forrest, the Modern Alchemist, and this is Talking Politics. Well, it's been a long time since I've talked about politics on the Modern Alchemist Channel, and there's a reason for this. And this episode is to discuss why I stopped talking about politics on the Modern Alchemist Channel and why we're going to start again. So, are you ready? Let's begin. So, as those of you who are the regular subscribers, and if you've been around since last year, you know that with Donald Trump's election, I started a Talking Politics program, and it was never my intention, actually, to just directly discuss any sitting president or any sitting elected official. Instead, and this is what continues to be the focus here, is a discussion of government and the relationship of the esoteric to government. And this relationship can be seen in multiple ways. I had started receiving some pretty negative emails. Usually, I'll get your standard kind of religious, God's going to save you, or you're doing the devil's work type of thing. And those I just, get rid of because I don't hold on to that. And some of the posts, actually, in the chat feeds were also pretty negative and challenged me openly, and so I addressed those at the time openly and wrote back. And interestingly enough, the person in question who had challenged me disappeared, and so the quote, the thing that I had written in response, went with it. So but essentially they had argued, and this was not just one person but many, the chorus of them had come together and said, we don't talk about this, and you're not to discuss this. This is, and it was very bullying type of stuff, and so that didn't bother me. I just kept doing it. However, the little, your spider sense goes off, and you're like, I should probably take some measures to protect what I've done so far. I literally followed, and by the way, my advice to any of you who have any sense of, hey, I should probably back this stuff up right now, you should probably do that right now. That definitely, because boy, there's nothing worse than the memory of boy, I had that feeling I should have backed it up. Well, I did in many ways, and I backed it all because the last thing I wanted was this resource to be threatened, to just go away for some reason. Well, the timing couldn't have been better. I had started noticing at that time my computer was starting to act a little weird. And the thing that really alarmed me, though, was that when I was going in as an administrator on YouTube to look at my channel, for a period of 18 hours, I wasn't able to access anything. I just figured it was glitchy. I figured if it was a full 24, if it was cycled through the next day and continued to be persistent, I talked to Google. But it wasn't like I was doing anything. I was just kind of maintenancing the channel, answering emails, and I realized I wasn't able to answer any of the emails directly from the standpoint of an administrator for the Modern Alchemist Channel. I had to go in as Zen Master Hubba Bubba and then answer some of the emails. And so those might still actually be there. So what happened then was the channel kind of glitched, and at the same time my computer at home glitched. Now this is all circumstantial, right? I mean, there's I've never had this happen before, but it was enough to rattle my cage. And by what I mean by glitch is I turned it on. This was within 24 hours of posting the episode 3. and I turned on my computer, and the first thing that happens is Norton pops up and it says, "Oh hey, thought I'd let you know there's a heuristic virus that's working its way through your computer right now." And I'm like, "A heuristic virus? That's a self-learning virus. Why would it qualify?" Anyway, so I'm like, wow, this is not okay. And literally, I was able to get into my computer enough to see that all of my files, except for the 2016 Essentials of Practical Alchemy, within my YouTube directories and stuff that I have, it's pretty big because you run a YouTube channel, you save everything, all gone. Like the computer was wiped clean except for that 1 year's teaching. And I was like, wow. And literally then right after discovering that, my computer just died. It just died. And if I hadn't, I have a lot of IT experience, and so I've built my own computers. So I calmly, I'm like, okay, so this is not okay. And then I went in and I looked at my computer. I couldn't access it. The zero partition was gone. All of the boot sectors were gone. Everything was gone. I had to reformat and build the entire thing off of a USB drive to get it going. So that rattled my cage pretty significantly, and the result is evidenced in the lack of the stuff I did last year. Because it took a few months for me to just kind of feel it out and go, okay, that was really, really, really weird. And it made me really uncomfortable, and I wasn't really sure what was going on. I'd lost all of the Saturn key, all of that was gone too. Fortunately, I had backed up big chunks of it, but all of it was gone, except for the 2016 Essentials of Practical Alchemy directory. That was still there until the computer was inaccessible, and then the whole thing crashed. So since then, everything is better. And I've not talked about politics. So, what I'd like to do is talk for just a moment. This is the direction that I've always wanted to take the channel. I would like to use the Piscean doctrine, which is a doctrine of opposition, which is embedded within the U.S. government. And since I was born and raised in the United States, and since I've studied politics in our country, I feel comfortable talking about American politics. I have no interest in talking about the politics of the world necessarily, but here, having been raised and understanding the politics of this country and how it was formed, I would like to discuss that. And I would like to discuss it as a means of understanding alchemy and the Kabbalah. The focus of this year is not to expose any kind of conspiracies or to say that people are doing it. I came out of that when I started this channel. It was off of Zen Master Hubba, and clearly that was obvious. To me, it was self-evident. On its face, it seemed like everyone was in the same little thing. As I've been doing this over the last 3 years, I'm starting to see the impact of what I would call the Manhattan structure of thinking, meaning the Manhattan Project in World War II, a very small group of people actually understood what was going on, and then everyone else was facilitating that activity without having actual knowledge of the bigger picture. And I think that this model is everywhere. It's the best form of security possible. Well, I have no interest in exposing that. Instead, what I'd like to do is simply borrow from Scripture and say that all things shall be for our profit and learning. Which means that if I can draw a comparative analogy and say, look, this is something that's functioning as a social structure, and it is exactly parallel to this order of thinking, we can learn from that. And I want to talk about World of Warcraft because this year is going to be awesome in World of Warcraft. It's going to be absolutely amazing because they've moved out of what feels to me like a retelling of how we all got here and the conclusion of that, to what we do now. And within the world of Warcraft, it all takes place primarily on the world of Azeroth, which, as an alchemist and anyone who's studied alchemy and understands it, understands that Azoth is the element. It's referential to Mercury and the magician. It's the idea of blending two forces which are in complete opposition to create something new, a fusion, a transmutation. This was, in my opinion, the goal of establishing the crucible of politics that exists within a two-party system like the United States. It is designed and inherently designed to create a government on a federal level which is almost intractably slow. And the purpose for that is to give everybody a chance at the far end of this, where the swing of the pendulum has the greatest impact, to make that a bit more pensive, a bit more thoughtful, a bit more introspective before a giant leap was taken and the entire nation was moved with the swing of that pendulum. And similarly then, that same principle applies to ourselves. So my goal in the future, as I relate any coursework or material to a structure of politics and make a statement that American politics is founded, it's embedded with, and its founders were advocates of, to say the very least, if not they lived what they believed, in the esoteric. If this were not the case, then the founding father of our nation, George Washington, its first president, would not have been sworn into office in full Masonic regalia. Just wouldn't happen, and we wouldn't keep a picture of that. Because it's important. Because that's important to the history of our country. Because it's everything we enjoy today is built on that. So what my counsel is to those who would seek to write in the comments section below or to continue commenting on classes I taught 2 years ago where I said, hey, you know, the Republicans and the Democrats, they happen to have the same exact colors as are seen within the Eyes of Horus, within the Kabbalah. It's referential to planetary forces, the law of correspondence, or rather the principle of correspondence, would teach us that we should educate ourselves in as many corresponding relationships as possible so as to understand the fabric and nature of consciousness within the universe. Because everything that we do, in spite of the fact that we're not being taught this directly, nothing has actually changed. Everything that we do is an expression to illustrate to the universe as a mirror that we see you, we see ourselves, that we are an embodiment of consciousness, and therefore we pattern everything we do into the pattern of what it is that the universe does. So when we see opposition and we recognize that opposition exists on exactly the same organism, the same facility, the same edifice, the same tree, we're not afraid. We're not afraid. And we have courage. And I guess that's, to wrap this up, that's really what this is all about. When I spoke on Ascended Minds, I blurted out at the end, I was like, oh yeah, and what you do, it takes courage. And of course, you know, if you listen to that, he's kind of like, oh, well, yeah, but you also have courage, and your face is out there, and that's why you're more courageous and stuff. What was happening there, you know, at first, I didn't know. I just blurted it out, and I had to meditate on that. I had to meditate on why suddenly I felt impressed to hear myself say it takes courage. And I realized over time that I was speaking to myself, that all of this takes courage. It does, because you're sharing an aspect of yourself completely, or at least that component of it completely, for it to make sense. And I want to continue doing that. And I want to take us into the world of Warcraft as a means of illustrating things I've talked about in the past. Because it's all there. Like, we can talk about electric universe physics by going to Outland. And we can explain things in terms which are understandable. You know, why do islands float in the sky? What's that about? You know, I want to take us there. I want us to explore the facility of imagination and not be afraid to talk about everything, because it's all connected and we're connected to everything. So to not talk about it is to not talk about ourselves. And there's nothing to be afraid of. I mean, it's just us. And where the rubber meets the road, where it all really matters. And I think this is why so many people are like, well, you can talk about all that other stuff, but just don't get into my backyard, because your backyard might be politics, because it's personal, because you've made it personal. You've chosen to see it that way. I don't have a dog in this race. I don't. Because I recognize that the government is an operation, and it's like looking at a tree. And part of it is in the dirt and in the darkness, and part of it's up in the air and in the light. And it cannot exist without both halves. Similarly, our government and our founding fathers saw that. They recognized the beauty of that. And they built it into the system of government that we have and enjoy today. And if it's not the way we like it, then maybe we should do something about it, because that's built into that system too. But my job isn't to get there and make you do anything. I just want to cast some light. I want to share the beauty of what I've come to see and understand, so that you can see the beauty too, and recognize how amazing it is, and how amazing we are, and how much potential exists in our willingness to expand our minds and to reach out without fear and explore the things that make us afraid. Figure out what's that about. Why even express something like that? What's the need to evolve from? We're going to talk about all of this, because this year, this is where the rubber meets the road. Human alchemy is definitely going to be a big component of what we discuss now. Because all the other stuff, yeah, that's comfort zone material. But you won't change, and I won't change, if we all just stay comfortable. There's no chemical activity when things are all static like that. So we got to shake it up a little. Like Jefferson said, a little revolution now and then is an okay thing. He didn't say it exactly like that, but you know what I mean. All right, I'm Aubrey Force, the Modern Alchemist, and this has been Talking Politics. I'll be talking to you soon.